From the US
to Kenya,
to women,
two continents, one
one
powerful
powerful
conversation.
conversation. A show where we bridge worlds.
Build sisterhood and share stories that prove
We're more alike than we are different.
You're watching from Atlanta to Nairobi.
Of a new beginning.
Welcome back, everybody, to From Atlanta to Nairobi. And I'm so excited to have our very own Vivian here to discuss some very important topics and to bridge the gap between continents and to form relationships and bonds between sisters. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well. I am well. So excited to dive into our topic today. And woo, 15 minutes is certainly not enough time to talk about all the things, but that's why we'll have to come back and continue. I know last time we had a really great conversation about motherhood, and we talked about just kind of how to try not to lose oneself in the process of just lifing. And I know today we're going to talk about just ways that we can kind of like focus on what brings us together rather than what separates us or what are some of the differences between us. So what's on your mind? We were talking about leadership and compassion.
Yes.
Let's start there.
I'm really happy we're able to dive into this. Even if this is going to be 15 minutes, maybe we can just share like most important pointers. But I feel like we're in a level whereby now as human beings, we have to integrate, we have to communicate from a point of compassion because, we are saturated as a race and then we are transforming. At the same time, we are questioning things. So there's really a lot going on. So, you know how sometimes you just be like, oh, how our parents would say, oh, because I said so, or anything like that. I don't think we can do that anymore. I feel like human relations now must be facilitated and conducted from the lens of compassion.
Wow, that's really good. And, we were talking about the things that are similar in cultures. And I will say that one that you said, because I said so, was definitely common in my growing up experience as well. So it's so interesting, even though we're thousands of miles away, some of the things that are similar and where we are. But also you mentioned compassion. And I feel like when people think about leadership, and I have my PhD in leadership and organizational leadership, and I've worked with all types of leaders. And some people think if you're not coming in there with the iron fist and if you're not the loudest in the room, then that makes you not a good leader. And for me, as someone who had to, as I grew up, I had to kind of come into my voice. Thankfully, I have a very, leader like mom, who was like, Elyssa, you need to, come on, like you got this. Like I know what you're capable of, even when sometimes I couldn't see it myself. And I have a different leadership style. Sometimes I'm not going to be the loudest in the room. And I think to be comfortable with that really shows like, hey, you can, there was a quote that we learned in like history class, speak softly and carry a big stick. And you can, be that compassionate leader. And this is not to discourage people who may be the loudest person in the room. You may have that big boisterous voice, and that's a beautiful thing. Or you may lead in a more gentle tone. It doesn't make you any worse or better than as a leader.
No. And I like that you've said that. You said what? Carry a big stick.
Softly and carry a big stick.
Yeah. Oh, it's Theodore Roosevelt.
Foreign policy famously associated by President Roosevelt. Yeah.
I feel like, even knowing you as Elyssa, you have different layers to who you are. We met in the gym, so that's something you do. And I was actually at a dance class recently, and I remembered you. So I'll share some videos. Yeah. And I was talking to a friend who we met through another work engagement. He called me, And he was like, oh, Vivian, I used to be an artist. And he told me his name. And I was like, that's so interesting. Like, he's an artist, but he's still managing businesses. Now he's managing businesses. So we met when we were younger. And so the reason I'm pointing this out is because sometimes we forget that we are layered, right? We are very simple beings, you like your tea hot or whatever, but at the same time, we are very complex, And so because of those layers, we have to, just have a lot of spaces of compassion. You can be really good at one thing and not good in another, and that's okay. You don't have to break your back. It's not about dumping your chest. It's not like just another one. There's a guy who I was listening to, and he said, uh women have never been too emotional for the boardroom. It's just the men who couldn't handle who women are, because women disrupt. We are. You cannot conform to something that is not life-giving and is not expansive. So there's a lot of things now. We're in that age where we need to integrate a lot of things. We need to accept even the things about ourselves that we may not be proud of, because we are multi-layered. We don't exist in one.
Yeah, a silo or a vacuum. Yeah. Woo, that is definitely some great points there. And like you said, we don't, I think, and maybe this applies more to you in the moment, where it's like, you're a mom and you're, doing all the things. And some people think like, okay, you have to do this and this and this. And if you're not, then what's your deal? Like, but for us, it's like, hey, let me maximize my strengths. If I know, listen, if I'm not the type of person to be cooking a 4-course meal every day, I mean, I could do what I can to feed my family, then maybe I want to outsource something, or maybe, you're the best, you keep the cleanest house on this side of the Mississippi, but maybe there's some other areas where you may need some support. And that, I even think about our conversation that we had last time about, motherhood in a village and being able to get support, and how normalized it's been for, people to just kind of do all the things. But I think villages were created for a reason.
Absolutely.
Our ancestors, because it takes a village. So
it always does.
Mm-hmm.
It always will. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What kind of leader do you think you are?
Good question. I'm definitely a compassionate leader, and there's a song I've been listening to, and it's ringing in my head. I've been through the fire, so I breathe slow, So when you walk through fire, you kind of, where something burns, and so how you approach life, you're not trying to show people, you're kind of just pacing yourself as you go through it. And so, especially in this phase and season of my life, I think I have definitely become a compassionate leader, but not weak. Actually, I think compassion takes a lot of power and strength. So
yes.
I can be firm, but I am also quite aware of boundaries. I let the embodiment of my being kind of lead the way, So what and mothering is teaching me this as well, whereby a child responds through expressing how they feel. So they will cry, they will laugh, they will throw a tantrum, whatever it is. And so in the same breath, every experience I have, I first gauge what is the effect of that action on my nervous system? Am I in freeze mode? Do I feel like I want to run? Do I feel like I want to start defending? So those are kind of like the pointers I use, even in my own life and even in leadership. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yes. And you said something really, really profound there. It takes strength to be a compassionate leader and to be an empathetic or an empathic leader for several reasons. One, we have to stay grounded while we're holding space for others' emotions. And, you may say, and hey, listen, no, what's the word? Like, no shade to those who may kind of fly off the handle. We're all working, we're all growing. But to hold space, and you are a human being too. So you have your own emotions and your feelings. And I can imagine, being the leader of, leading your young children, and they're like, mom, this and that. It's like, okay, I am going to center myself. And like a finger on the pulse on your nervous system to see what it's telling you, because sometimes it may be easy to kind of lose it, and then maybe the child internalizes like, oh, what did I do? And same with leadership. If I'm not practicing compassion and empathy, then I'm not, the team is not going to be able to do what they need to do and feel psychologically safe. Also, as you mentioned, firm boundaries. So making those hard calls, with a soft heart, and saying, okay, I can show compassion and have firm boundaries. And I feel like sometimes growing up, we associated boundaries with mean, boundaries were mean. And I think there's a fine line. There's a space, where we can hold our, I taught a course once, and there was one woman who mentioned that she had been so hard with her boundaries that she burned bridges and she missed some really great connections. And on the other side, you may have had somebody like, oh, this person gave me an ice cream cone when I was 6. So let me put up with all their malarkey. And it's just like, it has to be a boundary there.
Next time on From Atlanta to Nairobi.
This came up as you were discussing this. Connection over control. Showing connection over control.
And what kind of leader are you? Subscribe so you don't miss a thing. From Atlanta to Nairobi.